Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Breer, and welcome to episode 61 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight into your homes at 8:30 BST. We are lucky this morning to be joined by Lara Gilman, who is the co-lead at iwocaPay. And on this show, what we're going to be doing is talking about iwoca's new tech product, the report that they put out on the state of SMEs, and Lara's hopes for the SMEs and payments space through the remainder of this crisis. It's going to be a tough one for sure, but actually really sort of finding out what many organizations can do is going to be really, really important. So good morning, Lara. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. I've got a couple of screens, so I hope my eyes don't around too much. But
no problem.
Great.
I mean, for everybody's benefit in the watching this over on LinkedIn, when your iMac decides to download an update 2 minutes before you go live, that's always a challenge, isn't it? But well done. That must have been like you were just.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always about adapting.
Reboot. But anyway, well done. So, I mean, as always, folks, for everybody who's watching this over on LinkedIn, we love getting your comments. So please drop the comments into the sidebar over on LinkedIn. If you've got any questions for Lara about iwoca or anything that they're doing, we'll just weave them into the conversation as we go. So, Lara, can you maybe tell us a little bit about your background to get us started?
Yeah, for sure. So I've actually been in the kind of fintech scene in different ways since 2012. But I started actually working on mobile money. So working with mobile network operators, setting up mobile money systems across Africa and Asia. Ironically, that actually ended up leading me to iwoca because I really wanted to start working more in the UK where I was, and I wanted to work with great people. And actually, as it turns out, my former boss, Seema Desai, is our COO. She is a great person, and she connected me to iwoca, where I really kind of love the mission and love kind of what they were doing, and was excited to kind of get more involved in what was happening in the UK scene. So since then, the rest has been kind of history.
Very cool. And it's I mean, it's a fantastic company. I mean, I've come across iwoca in various different guises, but the thing I'm always struck by is the passion, as you say, the mission that the organization has, but the passion in the people that I've kind of come across. There's a great consistency to that.
I completely agree. We call ourselves iwocans, and I think that is a big part of our culture. The sort of drive and enthusiasm and passion and thought that kind of goes into how to kind of solve tough problems for SMEs.
And in terms of those problems, do you want to talk a little bit about more iwoca as a company and what you guys kind of do day in, day out? Because I'm sure while some of the more European audience will know that this has got an international audience, so potentially they won't have heard of you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So iwoca's been around since 2012, and we really focus on small business and making finance available for small businesses in the UK and in Germany. iwoca, for those who don't know, because I didn't know when I first joined, iwoca stands for Instant Working Capital, and that kind of was where we really started. How do we make finance accessible? Now our mission is about funding 1 million small businesses, and kind of puts the emphasis on the kinds of businesses we look to serve. So it is truly small businesses. And the way in which we kind of focus on doing that is by making finance available when, where, and how small businesses need it. And so a lot of the work is around context and making it relevant and making it accessible. And our USP is really how we use the data and how we kind of build our systems to do that.
Yeah, and clearly in this period, I mean, everything that's happening with COVID and the crisis and everything that's happening, I mean, SMEs need more support than ever, right? So you guys are obviously a CBILS accredited lender, which is a really big deal in terms of being able to help those SMEs. Can you tell us a little bit about how the crisis has affected you guys, and maybe then touch on a little bit about how the crisis you think has affected your customer base as well?
Yeah. So I think, in terms of us, we were able to kind of switch to remote working really easily. As a tech company, I think like a lot of the tech companies, that adaptability has been a huge advantage. I think more importantly is what we've been able to do for small businesses. So we are now CBILS accredited, and up until that point, we were working really hard on making the information available to small businesses to know where they can go and get finance, where they can what tools are available to them, how the government support can be accessible. Now that we're CBILS accredited, we just funded our customer a few days ago, our first one, and we are really working very hard to make that as accessible as possible, because we know that finance is going to be a key part to helping small businesses navigate this crisis and remain solvent and be viable, so that when the economy comes back, they're ready to go. Yeah. So now we're working, our CBILS is available for existing customers, but we really do want to make it very clear for all small businesses to come and register with us, because we're working as hard as we can to open those doors. Yeah. And certainly we'll be keeping up to date on our website. So yeah, we're doing everything we can to kind of make that product and make finance available.
Yeah, and it's as we say, it's a very testing time for small businesses in this period. I mean, how do you see the SMEs in the UK sort of coping at this stage?
So of course, you hear it again and again, and we're not the first to say it. Cash flow is critical. Being solvent and finding ways to ensure that you can kind of shore up your finances. And that's been something we hear again and again. And I think that the work the government has done to date really do have the right priorities in place, which is how do we keep this liquidity in the economy going, especially for small businesses, because we need them. Part of the economic recovery is going to be ensuring we have a healthy and viable small business economy. Yeah. That's a huge part to a healthy economy as a whole, not just for employment, but for innovation, for adaptability, for local economic development. Small businesses play a key role. And so they've been hit hard. I think on the other side of it, it's also been quite inspiring to see a lot of the innovation also happening. I mean, small businesses do pivot really fast. And so we've had customers go from, one business sector into PPE, and manufacturing that overnight. And so I think that there are also some quite interesting stories about the adaptability in this economy. But for sure, it's hard, and it's going to be hard for a while longer. And I think that for us, it's really important that we, help these businesses kind of survive and navigate this crisis and make good decisions and be ready on the other side to kind of start rebuilding. Yeah,
it is a difficult one. I mean, we could talk about that as I think a topic for the rest of the hour. But I mean, obviously the thing and your title within iwoca is about iwocaPay. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's a really interesting product, and actually, I mean, takes the company in a slightly different, or adds another string to your bow, as it were, in terms of the things that you can really do for SMEs. So tell us a little bit about iwocaPay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It does take us, it adds a new string to our bow, as you say, and it's not so much a different direction, though. I think, one of the things that we heard, our core product is what we call a flexi loan, and that's really about just making cash flow available when small businesses need it really easily. What we noticed from our customers is a lot of them are using to either pay a supplier or cover an invoice. And we wanted to sort of understand, well, can't we do that better? Basically, people are in this sort of purchasing journey. They have to leave it. They have to go look for finance. They have to decide what kind of finance they need. Then they come back and they solve that problem. And we just found that it must be a better way that we can use the engine that we've built to bring finance to the point of invoice. And so that's exactly what we've built, and that's what iwocaPay does. So we really built it for small businesses in mind, because that's who we serve and that's who we know. And what we're doing is solving effectively both sides of that invoice problem. So on the supplier side, we are we've created it to be a non-recourse solution, which means suppliers can offer payment terms to their customers without any risk to them. And then for customers, they have the opportunity to spread the cost of the invoice. So bringing that finance and making it work for both sides of the equation is really the core of what iwocaPay does. And we're really excited to kind of help small businesses better manage their relationships between customers and suppliers with this kind of product.
It's really interesting. So just talk us through that customer experience then. So like you say, this is just so I get my head around this. So it's two-sided, essentially the point of invoice. So the point that an SME would be issuing an invoice to somebody that they're doing work with, they can then issue different payment terms at that point as well. Is that right?
Exactly. One of the ways to think about it is like payment terms as a service. So right now, a supplier offers payment terms, and that is basically like, I give you 30 days to pay me, and I hold out that credit risk. We sort of say there's a lot of value in that. Customers do want payment terms, they want time to pay, and actually they want as much flexibility as they can get. But it's actually not necessarily the supplier who needs to be holding the credit risk or doing the collections or or kind of handling that, because the supplier really wants to get paid up front. So you've got two cash flow problems. So we sort of say, well, payment terms are great, they're valuable, they'll help your sales.
Well, and as you say, the getting paid for SMEs is, I mean, it's one of the biggest jobs that they need to achieve. So actually this, as you say, this is creating that intermediary there actually gives some assurance on both sides of the fence, doesn't it? Which is really, really good. I mean, what's been the reaction to this then? Because obviously it's a change, I guess, in the way that most of those SMEs would conduct that process. But how are you getting it to the point of invoice? How are you integrating this? Where does it sit essentially?
Yeah, so we have a few different ways that we're kind of looking at it. We have just launched the product. So we launched on June 5th, and that was kind of with the release of report 11, the paying field. But even before then, we wanted to sort of understand how this was landing. And so we had sort of a pilot product in play since February. And we opened up a wait list for customers or for small businesses to kind of register their interest. And we've got more than 500 small businesses, just without even putting too much into the market. Say, yeah, this is something that we would find useful.
Yeah.
And so we've been really enthusiastic about it and have a few businesses help us kind of on the product development process, because this product will live and breathe. The way it works right now is that we extend it for 90 days, but we're excited about making that product more customizable for suppliers and their customers, letting customers choose the terms they want, or letting suppliers think about how they want to offer those terms. And integration is going to be a huge part of it. We are making it available to direct from our website, from iwocaPay.co.uk, but we're certainly also looking at how we can integrate this product. So we at iwoca are very much of a tech-led business. One of our other BCR commitments was open lending, and so we're really proud of the fact that we can integrate and that partners are a really core part of how we do this. And iwocaPay is no different. And we don't want to get into the invoicing market, but we're excited to work with partners who are already there and working with small businesses. And if we can bring the credit part to that, if we can make the financing easier, make the payment easier, we absolutely kind of want to be there. And we're certainly in talks with lots of different kind of partnerships to sort of explore how that might look.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, integrating this where that problem is a really sensible step, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned there the report that you guys have just put out. For anybody who doesn't know, iwoca have released a report looking at SMEs specifically called, what was the name of the report?
The leveling the paying field. And I'm so glad I got to say it, because I love that pun so much.
And I mean, there was a couple of really interesting statistics that sort of jumped out of that, but to evidence really that this is such a big problem, right? 40% of UK businesses are currently facing over £10,000 of unpaid invoices. So, this is a real problem you're solving for the consumers. Can you talk a little bit more about that report and anything else that sort of stands out?
Yeah, what we really wanted to do was understand how small businesses are handling this crisis, and the best way to do that is of course to ask them and talk to them and engage. And so we wanted to kind of give a voice, not just to how they're doing right now, because we're certainly not the first to kind of the stats of that, the concerns around solvency, the outstanding invoices, that problem. We're not the first ones to bring it up. But the one thing this report does is not just look at where small businesses are today, but also looking at how this might change their behaviors in future. And that was really interesting for us to understand, like, does this change your decision making? Because going into the crisis, small businesses, we're not the most productive economy. We lag, and that's a big discussion point for the government. That's been a big discussion point in the fintech space. And so we wanted to sort of, and it was kind of almost a problem that wasn't bad enough to make any changes for a small business to say, yeah, I know, I could do more, but it's fine. Whereas coronavirus and the pandemic and lockdown we wanted to see if that's changed that desire to think about how businesses are run and how you run your business. And that's actually coming through. So in addition to customers saying, these small businesses telling us that they are concerned about their kind of short-term solvency and cash flow is what's keeping them up at night. And of course that makes sense. They're also starting to look at what they might do differently. And so things like carrying the risk of payment terms. A third said, yeah, we might not offer payment terms, we might shorten them. Others kind of told us that they're really looking at how they can be more robust in future and what other tools and services. And so it becomes to a point that I think there's a really interesting opportunity, not just for us with these kind of products and services, but also for the role that advisors and accountants and other small business kind of champions sort of bring to the table. Because I think that what's clear from the report is that there is an opportunity to kind of engage with this economy, to kind of engage with small business owners who want to be stronger on the other side of this. And so that's kind of one of, I guess, it's not a silver lining because times are really tough, but it's almost this light at the end of the tunnel is probably a better way of saying it, that we can, on the other side of this, come out and hopefully be in a position to have a much stronger small business foundation.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's the silver linings are very thin, aren't they, in this period? But I mean, no business is started because somebody wants to do invoices and payments and finance type stuff. They do
exactly
their passion, don't they, in terms of the thing that they really want to change the world with, or the passion that they have to make coffee or cupcakes or whatever it is. And actually, I think that's a really interesting point, is in this period, if 40% of UK businesses are currently facing £10,000 of unpaid invoices, then the focus on finance and the focus on their cash flow is going to be tighter than ever. So, I mean, hopefully, as you say, the other side of this, we get to a slightly leaner, slightly meaner group of SME businesses in the UK who are arguably just a little bit more in control of their business. But I mean, the payments terms, I mean, generally for SMEs, it's quite tough market. I think particularly, I mean, 11FS, we've been working with global banks. They're probably in control of payment terms. And who is saying how long payments is. But I mean, is there a kind of a bit of an imbalance there between the payments terms between SMEs and really big organizations right now, do you think?
Yeah, I think that absolutely, and that kind of in the report we talk about this as well. This David and Goliath kind of dynamic of, it's really easy for a big supplier to kind of squeeze their smaller supplier. I think beyond that, there's a couple of things I'd probably say. One is that there's the SME to SME market, and Bax had some fantastic data around this, that actually 80% of late payments are SME to SME, and so that problem isn't really being addressed yet. And on the banking side, the services that are being provided to SMEs aren't really tailored enough. So you have a couple of options for a payment term to kind of solve this payment term problem differently. So on one hand, you have invoice finance, and that is great for suppliers to solve their short-term cash flow issue, but ultimately they're still on the hook. And in fact, we had customers tell us, say, well, we're really frustrated because then, they go and chase my customer. My customer asks me, who's this person? And it has an impact on the relationship. On the other side, you've got insurance, which again gives you the peace of mind, but then you're not sure when, how long it's going to take to get that payout if your customer doesn't pay you. So you have to submit a claim. You maybe have to prove that the customer's gone insolvent. It's just quite a lot of work. And then equally, none of these problems help the customer spread their cost. So it's sort of, for us, we see this really as an opportunity to kind of say, well, this can be better and it can be more tailored. And I think that's also true in the take up. The number of businesses that use insurance and use invoice finance in some way, much, much smaller than the number of businesses who face this trade credit risk. And so for us, that's really kind of an opportunity. How do we make an SME appropriate product that really can help solve this problem? And this is kind of where iwocaPay is fitting in. And it's not just us. We're seeing this in a few different places. So in the US with Fundbox Pay, in Australia, there's a couple options, ProsperPay and MulaPay. This kind of payment terms as a service to kind of solve both sides is coming through in the market. So I think we'll see a lot of innovation.
Well, and like you say, it's one of those ones where these moments, nobody doesn't want to pay somebody. No, there's never a big organization not wanting to do it, or a small organization not wanting to do it. But how the sensitivity and how this is handled when it gets to that stage can mean the difference between an ongoing relationship being severed or an ongoing relationship being managed effectively, right? It's very similar to, I mean, on the lending side of things, the way in which somebody handles somebody missing a payment will change how that relationship is, the status of it forevermore, won't it? So like you say, invoice financing or insurance is solving the same problem, but with a very different approach to actually potentially the outcome both in the medium and the long term, right? So I can really see, like say, the positioning of this, it solves the same problem, but just from a very different angle, which is, again, it's always the best way to solve the problem, isn't it? To not do slightly better what other consumers are doing or competitors are doing, but rethink how the problem can be solved. So, I mean, how did you guys kind of come about this in terms of the creation of the product in the first place?
Yeah, it's great. It's really interesting. It was an interesting process. So it was one of our BCR commitments, and we had been actually looking at this space for a long time, but couldn't quite. It took us a while to kind of understand exactly how are we going to structure this. Understanding kind of it is new for us. It's a new context, but we kind of took a very first principles approach. So as I said earlier, the mission of the business is really to make finance available when, where, and how small businesses need it. And so we started there. I said, okay, well, we know there's a problem here. And then we also kind of layer that in with how customers were using our current product and what they liked about it and what they didn't. And so we kind of said, okay, well, can we bring some of the flexibility and figure out what's broken, what's not? And then we basically just started iterating from there. And I would say that we're certainly not at the be all end all of this product. I think it will continue to evolve and grow and change. But certainly, what's the thing they always say? Fall in love with the problem, don't fall in love with the solution. So I suspect what we have iwocaPay today, the problem I think we're very committed to. The solution will continue to evolve as we understand more about different sectors, different industries, different dynamics, and we're kind of excited to see how that goes. But yeah, where we started with, we kind of sort of said there's definitely a problem here. How are all the ways we could solve it, knowing what we're really good at? Yeah. And that's kind of where this solution, the first version of the solution, was born.
Yeah, no, I do always like that, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And I think particularly to your point, actually, when there are solutions in the market that don't actually solve the problem, that's always a good place to kind of look. I mean, some really interesting questions for you over on LinkedIn. I mean, are you aiming, and a question here from Oliver Smith, are you aiming this at the smaller end of the SME market right now? Because obviously this problem is very applicable to organizations at all levels, up to corporate accounts and, sort of more medium, larger side end of SME. So where are you sort of starting with that sweet spot?
Yeah, so it's probably a good way to think about it from the supplier side. We are looking for kind of smaller suppliers, basically suppliers who are frustrated by payment terms, by giving them, and that's kind of the angle we're looking at. For the most part, the people who express interest have been on the small medium size of SMEs, companies who don't have a credit control process in place, one-man bands, exactly you said, people who don't want to spend their life chasing payments and want to get back to the thing that they're passionate about. And so that's kind of that side. On the customer end, it's really any limited company. There are some, the way the product is structured, it's really meant for to be accessible for any size of business. But we really know that we're really strong at understanding and underwriting small businesses. And so kind of the accessibility there is where we see kind of opportunity and gaps. So yeah, it really is geared for the SME market and SME to SME context to start with. We certainly see, as we grow, big opportunities, and what we would actually love to do is start to make this product more bespoke for larger vendors, kind of to help them make trade credit, make payment terms more accessible to their customers, and make that more automated. And so I think that's an area we're excited to grow into next. But for now, we're really looking at that SME angle.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's the beachhead, solve a problem really well before you move on, right? So and actually, I think it would be really I can definitely see the applicability to this in terms of the more corporate environment, but obviously the complexity of the problems that those types of organizations have is slightly different. But like you say, it's I mean, given SMEs are somewhere in most markets, somewhere between sort of 75 and 90% of the market, then you're solving the problem for the most amount of people already, which is exciting. There's a question over on LinkedIn from Peter Cornforth, which was, I mean, in terms of accessibility of funds and repayment of funds, do you think there's a role for the recently launched request to pay standard from pay.uk? I mean, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because there's there's a level of almost black hole to those payment pieces that happen at that stage, isn't there? Where people don't really know if people are good for it in terms of the setup. So something like that might add to the capability that you're doing. It's almost another layer of comfort on top, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think actually this is more generally speaking. One of the things I love about the UK is it continues to be on the forefront of innovation at a kind of a macro level, and I think the request to pay is exactly there as open banking. You know, the world looks to the UK to see what good looks like when it comes to finance and financial technology and innovation. So I think that's absolutely right. Kind of the more general point. I guess specifically for us, this is absolutely. There's a nice complementary angle here. It is both these are looking about being confident about the payment you make. Is it worthwhile, and also the business you do. And so I think they're solving a similar problem and saying, can I trust this person, and can this person trust me? You know, one thing that came out of the research, which was quite interesting, was how important trust was. And in fact, businesses were much less likely to offer payment terms to new customers. They were much less likely to kind of open that door with people they didn't know. And so products like this can actually help start building that trust and give people visibility. In exactly the same way, I think request to pay is really about saying, yeah, this is right. I'm doing the thing that I'm meant to be doing. So yeah, I think there's they're probably certainly a nice parallel in the way that the industry is going to kind of help ensure there's trust at that payment point.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming to the top of the hour, unfortunately. I think we could talk about this for hours. I mean, unlike SMEs, we're big geeks when it comes to payment stuff, right? So we could probably talk about this forever. But I think it'd be interesting to just sort of close out on, I mean, what do you see from iwoca's perspective, the things that you're going to be taking forward from the crisis? Because, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of getting used to not having to get on the train for 2 hours to get into London, but the sort of working remotely, the setup, do you think there'll be things that you'll sort of take forward from this?
Certainly from a business perspective, absolutely. I think that we are starting to even internally rethink what is the purpose of an office. It's really important that people have that opportunity to come together and learn and share ideas and ideate and all that kind of good stuff. But maybe you're right, like you say, maybe every day the commute isn't necessary. Maybe we rethink how we do that. That's certainly on our internal side. We want to use this as a chance to again rethink how do we be most productive. I think beyond that, for us, the thing that's sort of in the back of our mind. We're confident we can get there, and we're kind of excited to see how that might work and how we might adapt as an organization. I think the forefront of our mind is really how do we help our small businesses get through this? We thrive when SMEs thrive. And so in the short term, it's really around solving an acute cash flow problem. And in the long term, starting to think about how can we build resilience in the SME economy? What role can we play to help this economy bounce back in the best way possible? Because finance is such a critical part of that. And so that's kind of where our mind is. And our mission is really kind of driven in that direction to kind of help rebuild this economy.
Yeah, and the next 6 months are going to be tough, but like you say, the SMEs really do such a big part of making the whole machine move when it comes to the UK economy. So I mean, hopefully we see those green shoots coming back really, really quickly. But Lara, congratulations with the product. It looks really, really awesome. You'll have to come back in a couple of months' time and let us know how the take up is and the impact that it's having. But for now, where can people learn a little bit more about you and the work that you're doing at iwoca?
Yeah, so iwocaPay is available at iwocaPay.co.uk. For iwoca, iwoca.co.uk. Find out anything we're doing on CBILS as well. For me, ping me on LinkedIn, ping me on Twitter. I'm a little bit slow, so bear in mind. But actually, I would love to hear from anyone who's solving similar problems, or equally partners who are kind of looking at this space. We're having lots of active discussions with partners, with larger vendors, to understand how this product and how this problem might fit into their world. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter, and certainly find us on iwocaPay.co.uk.
Fantastic. And I definitely recommend going and downloading the report that you guys have put out as well. So if not just for the pun was fantastic. All right, guys.
Thanks.
That's all we have for you today, but we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Tomorrow, I've got Mike Cunningham on, who is the Chief Strategy and Digital Officer at BSF. BSF are a really interesting organization, and actually, if I'm honest with you, the Middle East Africa region really is coming alive when it comes to fintech and big stage transformation. So should be a really, really, really interesting show. But that's all we have for you today, I'm afraid. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe as you can, and we will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.